Hello and welcome to Lesson 2 in the Astrology Syllabus. The Astrology Syllabus is for folks who are interested in astrology but feel really overwhelmed when they see a circular astrological chart. These are perhaps people who just hate a lot of lines and lots of symbols. It's really overwhelming amount of information. Or perhaps people who are most familiar with a rectangular table setup when listing planets in signs, like in CoStar, the CoStar app, or some other chart calculators online. Today's lesson will cover the planetary glyphs, which are the symbols. Glyphs is the same as symbols. The symbols representing all of the planets that we see or can see in a natal chart. This lesson will include the basic default planets you're going to see, like the sun, the moon, Mercury, etc., through Pluto. And they're also going to cover a couple of other symbols for things that aren't like legally planets. But we're going to include some of these other signs that are commonly found in like the default view of an astrological chart, as you would find on Astrology, for example. But there are many other symbols for asteroids or other points that you can see in a chart, that you can find in a chart, that you can specifically look up in a site like Astrology that aren't listed by default. So to begin, let's begin with the sun. Duh. So the sun, you know what the sun is. I hope so. You are a beautiful flower, and the sun gives you energy. I don't know. Unless you have like a light allergy. Okay, I'm getting too far into this. Anyway, so this is the sun. It's a circle with a dot in the middle. Our beautiful galactic boob. The sun takes, 1 year to go around the whole zodiac. It spends about a month in the sign. If you look at basic horoscope dates, they will show you the dates where the sun is in a particular sign of the zodiac. Like Libra would be listed from like September 23rd or 22nd through October 22nd or 23rd. I don't remember the exact dates anymore. But yes. And also note that the dates listed for what like constitutes like a Libra sun or a Virgo sun or whatever, these dates where you see like this is the beginning of Libra season and this is the beginning of Scorpio season, these are not midnight to midnight. The sun can move into the next sign at the end, tail end of the last sign, anytime during that final day. And yeah, there's wiggle room. It moves a bit. So you could be born on a date where like the newspaper, if people read newspapers anymore, like that horoscope section, you could be born on like the last day of Virgo season, but when you do your astrological chart with your birth time, you find that you are listed as a Libra sun. You could have been born like all of 5 minutes. You could be born like right as the sun moves out of Virgo and into Libra, and so you'd be like 0 degrees Libra. Anyway, this is what the sun looks like. It's a circle with a dot in the middle. Next up is the moon. Duh. It looks like a moon. It's really helpful. Yeah. The moon spends about 2.5-ish days transiting a sign at a time, and so it goes through the whole zodiac in a month. In roughly a month's time. And it's a moon. Yep. All right, we can move on. Mercury. Mercury looks like this fellow. I don't know. It's like he's got little horns. He looks like this. Mercury typically spends like a few weeks transiting a sign, and it never gets very far from the sun. So So if the sun is in Leo at a given time, then we know that Mercury is either going to be in Leo with the sun, or it's going to be one sign behind in Cancer, or it's going to be one sign ahead in Virgo. So we know that at any given time, Mercury is not going to be more than one sign away from the sun. And I think there is like a specific number of degrees that Mercury is kind of bound to the sun in a chart. And honestly, I don't remember what that number is. But Mercury, their claim to fame is the retrograde, and Mercury is retrograding a lot. It retrogrades between 3 and 4 times, like 3 to 4 times in any given year. And that's what Mercury looks like. We've got some horns, we've got this head, we've got a little plus sign cross body. He is, yeah, he's there. They're there. All right, Venus. So this is what Venus looks like. Got a big head and a plus sign cross. So Venus also follows the sun, just like Mercury does, but Venus understands personal space a little better. So Venus, you can find up to 2 signs away from the sun. So if the sun is in Gemini, then Venus could be with the sun in Gemini. It could also be 1 behind in Taurus. It could be 2 behind in Aries, or it could be either of the next 2 signs ahead of the sun in, what did I say? Yeah, Gemini. So it could be ahead in Cancer or ahead in Leo. So Venus has kind of they've given themselves a longer leash. So yeah, but they're still kind of sticking close to the sun's orbit. But yeah, they just understand personal space more than Mercury does. And Venus retrogrades every 18 months, so it's a little rarer to find it in a birth chart than it is to find Mercury retrograde people. We're pretty easy to find. But it's a little rarer for Venus retrogrades. And yeah. All right, that's what Venus looks like. Mars, this is Mars, pointy boy, angy boy. Mars takes about 2 years to go around the entire zodiac. It normally spends about 6-ish weeks, like a month and a half, in a sign. But along with its 2 years to go around the entirety of the zodiac wheel, it also retrogrades. It retrogrades every 2 years. And so even though it might usually go through a sign in about 6 weeks, when it's retrograding through a sign, it's just there. It's there a long time. Like, we're currently in the run up to a Mars retrograde in Gemini when I'm recording this. And Mars has been in Gemini for about a month now. It's going to be in Gemini for a total of about 7 months, if you count from when it ingressed about a month ago until it leaves, gets its butt out, and gets into Cancer. It's going to be there about 7 months. That's a long time. It's a long time for it to be hanging out in my 7th house. I don't like it. We're gonna make friends. I try to make friends with Mars. Mars is angular in my charts, up at the midheaven, so it's very prominent for me. And I'm just gonna have to deal with it anyway. Yeah, takes 2 years to go around. Retrogrades every 2 years. This is what it looks like. Big circle, pointy arrow. Jupes, Jupiter. All right, I just get excited. I get excited. So this is Jupiter. Looks like a big old 4. Really easy way to remember that is that Jupiter looks like a 4, and you can think like, oh, Jupiter is the planet that gets associated largely with fortune and luck, and it looks like a 4, which in which you can kind of correlate to like a four-leaf clover, right? As I'm saying this, that you can think of as like, oh, it's kind of like a four-leaf clover. It's lucky, and Jupiter is associated with luck and fortune. I'm also aggressively thinking like, oh yeah, four is also a very not lucky number in other cultures that aren't, I don't know, just thinking about four-leaf clovers. But yeah, Jupiter looks like a big old four. Yep. And some facts about Jupiter as a planet. It takes about 12 years. So Jupiter goes around the entirety of the zodiac, goes through all 12 signs in 12 years. So it's cute like that. It takes about a year per sign to transit. And it retrogrades, once we're here at Jupiter, everything's retrograding like for like months at a time. Every year. Like, it's very regular, it's very normal. Yeah, that pretty much every planet from here on out, from Jupiter to Pluto, is gonna retrograde, have like a major months-long retrograde period every year. But I did want to mention that even though Jupiter transits one sign over the course of 1 year, it's not all like within one calendar year, of course. And if it's retrograding in and out of that sign, like it entered Pisces and then retrograded out back into Aquarius like a year ago, and then like, oh, more than a year ago. I don't know when I am. But for instance, yeah, it like was in Aquarius, went into Pisces for like a couple of months, backed out, retrograded back out, back into Aquarius, and then came back eventually to zoom all the way through Pisces and into Aries, and now it is retrograding, slowly backing out of Aries, and we're going to dip back into Pisces for a few months at the end of this year, and then we're finally going to get back into Aries. So get back into Aries around the end of this year. So it's time spent in Pisces is like a couple months here, a few months there, a couple more months at the end are picking up. It's not all in one chunk, which is rude because it's doing the same thing to Aries during my Jupiter return. It's going to back out of Aries and then it's going to zoom through so fast, and I'm going to just get like 5-6 months at a time. But yeah, but there are years where it just like, it's just kind of like hanging out there and it retrogrades in its own, in the sign it's already in, doesn't back out into a different sign, doesn't go forward into the next sign and then have to come back and do this little dance. Sometimes it's just the same sign, like for a full, not calendar year, but like for a full like 12-ish months. And it's beautiful. Isn't that cute? Wouldn't it be nice if you did that, Jupiter? Like sometime soon? Anyway, yeah, Jupiter looks like a 4 and Saturn looks like an H. Yep. So put them together, and it's the 4-H club. So Saturn is like the final traditional planet. It's the final visible planet. So once we get beyond Saturn, we get into the planets that we didn't know, we just like didn't know existed until a few hundred years ago. So if we're looking like deep thousands of years ago into, older astrology, then you're only going to cover up to Saturn of these traditional planets. It only goes up to Saturn, because that's as far as we could see. We could see with the naked eye. So Saturn is notorious hard ass, I want to say. It takes about 30-ish years, 28, 30 years to go all around the zodiac. So this is where you get the term the Saturn return, from around the ages of like 27 to 30. Yeah. So Saturn takes about 30 years to go all around. And for each sign that it transits, it's spending about 2.5 years in that sign. And yeah, it looks like an H. Not a lot of complaints have I for Saturn right now. Or at least I'm not trying to tempt fate and add more complaints to Saturn. Anyway, welcome to the outer planets. It's time for Uranus, aka George. Uranus had some naming adventures for a while. I feel like it took a while whenever they discovered Uranus to get it named. Hence the George. That was a suggested name to name it after the king at the time. So Uranus is it's this. It does look weird. I've just included both a more curved version of the glyph as well as a more straightened out version. But yeah, a circle, got a stick, and we've got, I don't know, 2 helper buddies. I don't know. Is this guy, I mean, is he lifting? We can just imagine he's like lifting weights or something. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know how to describe this object. What are you? What are you, George? Anyway, so Uranus looks like this. It does often take me like a little bit of concentrated effort for a second to make sure that I know which glyph I'm looking at with Uranus. Because the outer planets can kind of blur in my mind a little bit. But anyway, Uranus takes like 84 years to go around the entirety of the zodiac. And it transits an individual sign over the course of about 7 to 8 years. And because of that, that time that it takes to go from one sign to another, it makes it easier knowing that transit time to identify Uranus in a chart. Like if I know what year I'm looking at and I like look at a glyph and I have like brain freeze, like, oh, which outer planet is that? Is that Neptune or is that Uranus? If I know what year I'm looking at, then, and it's, within a reasonable range of my birth year, where I will know its position really, by looking at it 10,000 times, then I can figure it out. It's like, oh, that would be Uranus. Neptune should be over here in this other place. So yeah. Anyway, speaking of Neptune, Neptune's literally a trident. It's a trident. Yep. It's got three spiky boys. We have an example here where they actually have arrows. They have little sharp points at the end. It often won't have sharp points, but, I see the points often enough. I wanted to just put examples. It reminds me also of like a chalice with like a candle holder or something in the middle. And yeah, it's got the cross body down here. And yeah, that's Neptune. Neptune takes about 14 years to go through to transit one sign. So its time to go around the entirety of the zodiac is about 165 years. It's slow. Yeah, Neptune was in Capricorn when I was born. It's only in Pisces now. Like it's only gone through like, yeah, it's not gotten super far. But then I guess I'm not that old yet. I'm just still older than the internet wants me to be. Anyway, yeah, that's Neptune. She looks like a trident. It's cute. Happy Little Mermaid time. Pluto. Oh god, Pluto is a nightmare. So Pluto has got a little bit of a variety of glyphs. I see this one, the one that looks like a P, that kind of like, I don't know what it did. I don't know what's happening here. Like an underlined P. I see this one the most often, and that's what I'm mentally ready to see, is just like kind of the letter P for Pluto. But I also see this sometimes on some other chart styles, and this one upsets me. It's like a glowing orb in a chalice, and another crossbody, and or like an eyeball. I guess you could think of it as kind of like Eye of Sauron-y. Actually, that might be a good way to think of frickin' Pluto. Uh, Eye of Sauron at the top of a tower. Um, yeah, maybe not a bad mnemonic. All right, let's go with that. But whenever I see this, I like have a gentle flare of anger, gentle flare of rage, because I want it to just be a big P. It's very straightforward. I like it. It's easy. It's just a letter P. So Pluto's transit time varies a long time, or varies a lot per sign. So Pluto might go through a particular sign like Scorpio over the course of about 14, 15 years or something. But then in other signs, it'll take like 20, 30 years. And what are you doing, Pluto? But if you're looking at the time it takes for Pluto to go over the entirety of the zodiac and back to like wherever you just picked as its starting point, it's about 250 years, a little less than that. For example, the U.S. is having our first Pluto return now, and it's been about 250 years since like 1776. It's not exactly that, but it's like we're getting close to that point. So yeah, Pluto takes its time. And it looks like it could look like this and look like the Eye of Sauron, or it can just be like an underlined P. Cute shit. Alright, so this is not a planet, arguably. We don't know what Chiron is. I've seen Chiron described as like everything and nothing. It's like, oh, it's not quite this, but it's kind of this, and then it's kind of also this thing. I don't know what the hell Chiron is. But yeah, you'll find Chiron on a lot of like default views of charts. And it looks like a key. It even has, like, it's shaped kind of like a key with this like circle bottom, and then the long, I don't know, the part of the key you would put into a lock. And then yeah, and then we have something that kind of reminds me of the letter K shape up here with the stem and the pokies. The lines here just looks like a K, so even though Chiron starts with a CH and not a K, it does make the K sound. So just think of it as like Chiron shaped like a key might have something that looks kind of like a K. It might look a little less like a K when the stem is shorter, but yeah. This one really looks like a key because the stem is so long. Yeah. That's Chiron. I think it also drags ass when transiting. Okay, so these are definitely not planets. So these are the nodes, which you can call the north or south nodes, or Rahu and Ketu. The north node would be known as Rahu, and the south node is also known as Ketu. So these are not planets, they are calculated points, and they kind of track where eclipses are going to happen or can happen. So, yeah. So, yeah, they're the nodes of the moon, so an eclipse can happen if there is like a full or a new moon where the the sun and the moon are both near one or both of the nodes. And anyway, I'm not here to actually explain what the nodes do, but these are calculated points. They are not planets, but you will often find them, or one of them. Usually the north node, or Rahu, which is this one right here. I always forget that I have a pen, but yeah, So this one appears by default on a lot of charts, and yeah. So this would be the North Node. It looks like little headphones or like a cute little like Carol Brady hairstyle, I guess. um, yeah. So a lot of times, like the default view on Astro Dienst does not this show the South Node, or you can select for that by selecting a little thing that says descending node further down the page on an Astro Dienst, like extended chart view thing. But even if you don't have the upside down, if you don't have the South Node appearing on a chart, you can always know where it is because it's going to be directly across the wheel. It's going to be the same degree but the opposite sign as the North Node. So if you have a North Node and listed on your chart and it's at 14 degrees of Pisces and you don't have the South Node on there, you can know that the South Node is going to be directly across the wheel from 14 Pisces at 14 Virgo. So that's an example. All right, and that's it apparently. Thank you for attending this second lesson of the astrology syllabus, and I guess I'll be back with lesson 3. Bye!